hardness of my head. Close your eyes, spin around, say, hard times, you can find it, ain't the way that you want. But it's still alright. Late at night, you lay around wondering, counting all the lines. So funny now, say times are hard. You get this far, but it ain't the way that you want. And I'll be damned if this old man's on to counting his losses. But it's still alright. See, learn a lot out there, and how to scorch and burn, to have to bury your friends, and then you find it gets worse, and standing out on the ledge, and with no way to get down, you start praying for wings to grow. Oh baby, just let go. Ain't alright, you keep spinning out ahead. It's cold outside, hit the ground, say I could sleep here, forget all the fear, but take time to grow. Maybe I don't know. Hey, tonight, think about it. Remember all the lines you pointed out. Say the glass is clear with all this fear. You start leaving a mark. Your idle hands are all that stands from your time in the dark. No, it's still alright. So you learn a lot out there, and how to scorch and burn, and then you have to bury your friends, and you find it gets worse. You're standing out on a ledge, with no way to get down. You start praying for wings to grow. Oh baby, just let go. Oh baby, just let go. Oh baby, just let go. Yes, and welcome. Welcome to Collective Church. It's 5 p.m. Sunday night. I'm Ben. I'm the pastor. I'm going to be your host for the service tonight. And I mean, it's beautiful, but it's rainy downtown DeLand. Thanks to everybody that's here. We're also online. We are collectivechurch.com, where you can subscribe to stay connected. We're gathering safely in person. That means we're back to a higher level of what we call precaution, common sense, distancing, managing exposure within your clusters. We highly recommend that you wear a mask regardless of your vaccine status, as COVID cases are still, I think we would say, unsafe. So we're going to keep safe for everybody else. If you need a mask, we got one for you. We are also streaming live. We respect safety and privacy, so if you want to be off screen, you want to be over that way. In person and online, live now or later on, whenever, wherever. Your presence, and I guess mine now tonight also, I'm back, and my presence makes us who we are. Yeah, well, thank you. Thank you. I'm happy to be here. Thank you, thank you. Liturgy, we say all the time, means the work of the people. That simply means, and you know this after the last 5 weeks, it's not my work. It's our work. You all have been carrying it. I've been gone. So now we'll do the work together again tonight. Here to help us tonight, 3 people that have known me the longest, that I probably trust the most in connection with the work we're doing. Kenny and Dave and Michelle. They're going to engage some of the content tonight and read. And they're going to provide the kind of roasting that only long friends can as we talk about me. So if you're online, though, Kenny's going to host online. So if you're there, I think Jim Kane may be with us, but you want to jump on, let Kenny know you're there. You'll have an opportunity to interact. If you want to roast me from online, the safety of your own home, you can also do that. Kenny will pass those along. Artist in residence, also one of the dudes that I trust the most in the world with this crazy thing that we're doing, Fred Wilson. Always good to have you here. Hey, Fred. And Dan Hensley came and jumped in with the Java behind the bar, so we're going to give him a hand. Thanks, Dan. And many, many more, near and far. We all are Collective Church. Michelle is going to remind us what that means with our community statement.
We value highly the metaphor of journey. We're different people from different places and backgrounds, representing an intergenerational community, and we've traveled different paths. So we agreed not to make assumptions about the person across from us, next to us, or in conversation with us. We challenge ourselves to be sensitive, knowing this community includes a diverse group of people, from lifelong followers of Jesus to people who are just now open to the idea that God might exist. We strive to avoid offense, ask good questions, articulate and explain our responses. We don't assume fluency in Bible, spirituality, or church language because we believe the message of Jesus is not for Christianity, but for humanity. So we do everything in the spirit of love and grace.
Thanks.
Different paths, beautiful people with messy paths, so have no fear, no judgment here, whether you believe in Jesus or don't believe in anything, something you can teach us. You belong, no right, no wrong. Solidarity helps us to find some peace in the great unknown. You don't have to be alone. Leaning into grace, help us make a place with an open table. No one's turned away. We'll love without why. No one has to hide. Finding God in people, sharing hearts as
right. We have said it and we have sung it. Kenny, how do we practice the community statement this week?
Practicing with us begins with the Collective's weekly email. If you haven't yet, you can go ahead and subscribe to the email and check the box for the rundown. Then you can pick which groups you want to see within the rundown. They have events that range from weekly, like Cares and Yoga, to monthly, like Pints and Art and Soul. Remember, though, you have to make sure to check the rundown. Otherwise, you'll miss out on the news about all the groups that you've selected. By doing this, your dashboard will be set up for just how you want it for both practice and communication. Art and Soul was a lot of fun this past week, thanks to Jenny Beth. And thanks to Heather, we have some fun photos to share with you. We'll be back at the Create Space near the end of October. So if you haven't yet had the chance to check it out, I really encourage you to do so in the coming weeks, even if we just say thank you for the work Jenny Beth is doing for Collective in the community.
Absolutely. And part of that work is not only the Art and Soul stuff, but the kids. And I think they're already gone, right?
Yeah, I guess they must have.
Well, we were going to dismiss them. But in very collective fashion, they just kind of did what they needed to when the time came.
They dismissed themselves.
Yeah.
This is off. Now it's on. Or is it off now? Look at that. If you turn, so this is, you guys probably don't know this. If you want something to be on, if you turn the button to on, that's how you can turn it on. So that's advice here, free. So Art and Soul, like Kenny was saying, Jenny Beth also is a part of the programming for Collective Kids. So she's got the kids tonight. Super grateful for her. If you can participate in any of the programming that we have the privilege of being a part of, that is awesome. So the kids are out. Freddie, talk to me about what is going on in the faith cycle. So first give us like the cycle of the year, like the 4 parts, and then tell us where we are now and how we can kind of engage again.
All right. Well, the first thing that we do at the beginning of the cycle is...
Let me pause you. I'm sorry. For those of you that don't know, those in the room, those online, faith stands for Fighting Against Injustice Towards Harmony. This is more than 30 congregations in Volusia County who are working towards justice-related issues. And so each year we follow a cycle to work for justice. Freddie's an organizer, in addition to being a musician here at the church. So Freddie, tell us kind of the cycle and then where we are.
Yeah, so in the kind of late summer into the fall, we do what's called house meetings, and that's where we listen to the membership of our congregations and just folks in the community, and we talk about what is going on in our lives, how we are all impacted by injustice, and we tell stories about the things that are burdening us. And from there, we collect those stories and we go into a convention where we'll vote on what issue we're going to take on next. This year, we're not voting on a new issue, but then we form research committees, and then the next step is to research the problem. And we have a broad problem like education or gun violence or homelessness. Then the research committees, which are made up of the different members of the various congregations, will go and they'll find what is a policy that can make a huge difference and is implementable here locally. And from there we go into our most important phase, which is action. We get a whole group of people together. Last year we had 1,300 people, and we come to the public officials and we say, this is what we need. This is what the community needs. Will you do that? Yes or no? And then we'll have a celebration afterwards. That's our fourth step in the process, where we celebrate and we also follow up to make sure that the commitments that were made by public officials or whoever are being followed and that justice is being done. And right now we are in the listening phase. So we're right at the very beginning. We are holding house meetings across the county, many times over Zoom, but also in person, socially distant. And we have a house meeting coming up here at Collective in collaboration with our friends from the Quaker.
The Deland Quaker meeting.
The Deland Quaker meeting.
Cool. When is that house meeting?
That is the 30th.
Okay, 30th of September. So we're coming up here in like 10 days. That'll be, what is it, not this coming Wednesday, but the following?
That's right. Is it Wednesday or Thursday?
Thursday.
It's a
okay.
Thursday.
Cool. Well, calendars, we can find it based on the date. Yeah, come and participate in that. We've had a few of those in different locations in the past just because Collective's been in different locations, but I remember participating in a few of them in the way that the power of storytelling sort of galvanizes what the issue is going to be, that it's not, just data and spreadsheets, but the way people can kind of share in a compelling way what actually affects them.
Absolutely.
And Freddie's good. He's such a good, organizer for faith. He didn't mention this. You may have heard that and gone, man, what a great process. Where did that come from, the founding fathers? No, it actually came from the Bible. Faith uses a process that they got out of this weird ancient book called Nehemiah. But basically the idea is that the best way to hold power accountable is to get people together in a place and say, this is what we want. And so that's what faith is doing, but with a lot more study, a lot more organization, that kind of thing. So we actually have, I think, a sample of a clip from like a listening meeting to give them a sense for what it is.
So for those that have followed along with faith and what we've done the last 8 years has been really focused on youth criminal justice. Years ago, we heard stories in house meetings of people who are struggling with their kids being arrested for non-serious misdemeanor offenses and how that's impacted their lives as they've grown up and have this criminal record. So Faith has made huge progress in that regard, in that campaign, but it all came from stories. And this is one of the stories that has come a little bit more recently from a woman who's a member of one of Faith's congregations who has had some struggles with her child who committed a non-serious misdemeanor offense. So,
yeah, check this out.
My name is Barbara Cochran. My son is Ronald. When Ronald was 7 years old, he was arrested with 1 felony and 2 misdemeanors. This happened a block away from my house at Burns Science Tech. It's a charter school in Volusia County. The kids down here in Oak Hill play on the playground at the school. They've always done it, and there's never been any problems before. When he was there, he entered the building. One of the doors was not locked. The door was broken. It doesn't lock. And while he was in there, they rode their bikes on the halls. They ripped down some posters. They colored on a teddy bear, knocked over a desk, and made a little bit of a mess. He got felony burglary. He got trespassing and criminal vandalism, I believe. What they were doing, it was wrong, but I don't think it was criminal, and they didn't consider it to be criminal. They make a mess like that in their bedroom. I had no idea what had happened. I was at work earlier that day. The police showed up at my door, and they told me that they were arresting my son, and I was terrified. And I said, okay, I'll drive him to the police station. They said, no, you can't drive him to the police station. He has to ride with us. I said, okay, well, I'll ride with him in the police car. They said no, that I couldn't ride with him. And Ronald was terrified. He was crying. He didn't want to leave me. They put him in the back of the police car, and he cried even more. We were at the police station. They wouldn't let me in. They wouldn't let me talk to him. They wouldn't let me see him. He was in there for about 3 hours. And we were just sitting outside the police department. Finally, when they let him out, he was so thankful to see me. And I realized as he was getting in the car, that his pants were wet. He had peed his pants in the police department, but he was just that scared. He was crying for his mom. It was the worst feeling in the whole world. As a parent, you never, ever want to see your child taken from you and taken someplace where you don't know what's going to happen, and not being able to speak to him or know if he was okay, knowing that they picked him up before dinner and he still hadn't eaten, that he was hungry. It was horrible. After they finally released him, I brought him home. He was so scared that night, he slept in bed with me. And I cried most of the night after he had fallen asleep. So finally we get a court date, and as we were walking in, he's like, Mom, I don't want to go. I don't want to go. He stops dead in his tracks. I remember him hugging me, and he said, I don't want to go. And I said, Ronald, we have to go. come on. So as we're walking up there, he stops and he throws up right before we enter the parking lot. We walk in there, and there's no other kids his age or as small as him. We're talking to the judge, and I'm telling the judge what happened. Even she didn't think like that they should have been arrested for it. There was no need to take him like that. There was no need to put me through that. There was definitely no need to put him through that. Ronald, ever since, has been very leery of police officers. When we were in a store, a gas station, and somebody would walk in a uniform, he would look at the floor and he would grab my hand. I believe the fine was around $300. I would have been happy to pay this. I would have been happy to fix the door, even if it would have cost more to fix the door. I would have paid the money to have that door fixed so this would never happen again to another kid or anyone else.
That's right.
But you can certainly still be involved.
But you can come to the house meeting.
Yes, you can come to a house meeting. That's also still obviously one of the items that's on our agenda, along with affordable housing. But that's a great kind of just video asset to give you guys a sense for what it is we're doing, and that it's not. Even though we're working for justice, which is systemic change, we talk about direct services pulling people out of the river. Working for justice is stopping people from throwing them in. Even though we're not necessarily doing direct service, what we try to do with the listening meetings is still help you to understand that they're connected to stories. These are still real people. Even though it's justice work, it's got real, everyday, person-to-person impacts. Is that a fair way to say it? So anyway, continue to be involved. The house meeting coming up, be there if you can. Invite people, especially if you know people who have something that they need to share. If they've got a story about the way things aren't working, that's the business we're in, right? And business is booming.
That's true.
That's true. Kenny, take us out.
Just a note about the house meeting, there is a Facebook event for that.
Awesome.
That includes the Zoom link for that. So if you're going to invite people, you can invite them on Facebook, tell them that it's there. It's
Awesome.
listed as Collective/Deland Quakers house meeting.
Cool.
Is this video available to share?
Good question.
I can, not on social media. I'll talk with you about that, yeah.
We'll see if we can get some assets to share, though, to promote it, to
Yes,
invite people.
absolutely.
Cool.
So remember, the point is the practice. Part of the practice is going to the house meeting on the 30th. Showing up, giving, and serving are some of the other ways that we practice together, from the rundown of our weekly practices to giving financially. Make your plan now to do what you might not want to do later in the week. Of course, if you need any help, I'm more than happy to help you right after the service at the bar. And since we've talked a lot about practicing this week, let's actually practice together now. Ben, will you lead us in silence?
Yeah. We're going to share a few minutes of silence together. We'll sound the singing bowl in just a second and ask you all to join us in returning to our attention. So we use the language of centering or prayer or simply shared silence, silent worship. And the idea is that we're people who live with a lot of chatter. And your mind will wander, but we can choose to come back to our breath without judgment. We can choose to come back to our breath and notice that it's not good or bad, it's just breath. We can choose to come back to our breath and realize that our breath is ourself. Brandon's got some amazing drone footage this week with a really cool message that matches up with what we're talking about tonight, so feel free to check that out. If you want to use that footage to help facilitate your sense of connection during the silence, please feel free to do that. May this silence allow us to contemplate what we want the ceremony to accomplish for us this evening. humility, spiritual rebirth, strength for what lies ahead. Relax. It's all right. It's really nice when you get done and you're like, I could have used a lot more of that, especially with the rain. All right, let's cancel the sermon and just sit in silence. Dave, would you read for us from the Gospel of Mark?
That evening, after sunset, the people brought to Jesus all the sick and demon-possessed. The whole town gathered at the door, and Jesus healed many who had various diseases. He also drove out many demons, but he would not let the demons speak because they knew who he was. Very early in the morning, while it was still dark, Jesus got up, left the house, and went off to a solitary place where he prayed. Simon and his companions were looking for him, and when they found him, they exclaimed, "Everyone is looking for you." Jesus replied, "Let us go somewhere else, to the nearby villages, so I can preach there also. That is why I have come." So he traveled through Galilee, preaching in the synagogues and driving out demons.
Thank you, Dave. I had that thing I was going to do with a candle, but I didn't bring a lighter. That's such a powerful symbol for, yeah, sweet. I love this church so much. And a proper lighter. Thank you, Heather. You can't light a candle upside down, can you? Well, I can. And now, may the words of my mouth and the meditation of all of our hearts light another step on the way. Not only the light of hearing these words, but the way of putting them into practice. I don't know what to do, and I don't know entirely how to be well, which means I don't know right now how to be a leader in just the right way. But I've been listening to a lot of the Brene Brown podcast. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell you some of my story and let you guys in on some of that and trust that that the Spirit will do what the Spirit does, and you'll hear things that are valuable or challenging or whatever. But I want to share out of a sense of a question. And so that's like the question is, what's up? And I sense that question of like, what's up with Ben? And that may have been, if you've been around a long time, that may have been like 5 years, or if you've been around a short time, that may be a few weeks, like, hey, what's up with Ben? And that may be like, where is Ben? Like, Ben's been gone a little bit more recently, so like, what's up with Ben? Where is he? Or it may be like, what's up with Ben? Even when Ben's around, it's not Ben. Like, Ben's not here, even when Ben's here, which is also totally fair. So I want first to share about what's up with me, because next week we're going to share about what's up with Collective. And I love you guys and respect you all so much that I want, in the coming days of my leadership, for you to have the opportunity to know who I am and where I'm coming from, so that when decisions are being made about Collective, you also can go, hey, you know, that's Collective, but I have a better sense of where Ben's coming from in making that decision, so that you can agree or disagree, right? It's not a dictatorship, but I'm the one that has to make decisions. So I felt like it was fair to be real with you about where I am and what's up. So where to start? Well, we started Collective. Many of you were a part of that. And the story, I would say, kind of goes that things went pretty well for the first 5 years or so, 4 years. And we had really kind of done a lot of what we set out to do. And that was 2016, beginning in 2017, in this really cool building on Alabama. And what happened, and we can get into this more next week, but without casting any blame or making any value judgments, what happened is what always happens. Life happened, and we couldn't stay like that there, right? Which is also the good news, is that even when things are their absolute best, you don't get to stay. And that sucks, and that's heartbreaking, but things changed, and things had to change, and so they changed with Collective, they changed with our affiliation with the church that was hosting us, they changed with staffing, they changed with money, they changed with plans moving forward, they changed with whether or not and how we could be sustainable. They changed in terms of my need to be more formally affiliated with the United Methodist Church to continue to access goodwill and money to continue the project. So all these layers, we can get into that stuff more. The bottom line is, the last year of the real success of that first season of Collective, I spent as a hospice chaplain, 2016 all the way through till Christmas, just before 2017. And I, to cope with that, to cope with the success of starting this really cool church and working part-time as a hospice chaplain, burying people, my mental health was slipping. Hospice was a lot, Collective was scaling. I was back in grad school so that I could complete ordination. so that we could keep this project going, 2 young kids. I drank myself through that year of hospice. Many of you guys know that we're around. Some of the founding family, the McCulloughs, the McCullough room, they passed that January, just after I got done with this hospice thing. And I went on a really serious drunk for about 6 weeks. And the end of that included the blessing of bottoming out, which for me was driving drunk with my kids in the car. And, still probably one of the most shameful things I've ever done, and sort of was a lot of what shook me enough to stop drinking, thanks to Dottie and Myra, who were a big part of that. So I stopped drinking, and if any of you have ever stopped drinking, looking back now, it makes a lot of sense. All my coping mechanisms kind of disappeared overnight. And so everything was changing with Collective, but also everything was changing with me and with my ability to cope with everything that was changing with Collective. And so, how I coped with death day to day as a hospice chaplain. And then when it got very real with Bill and Renee and Ryan, how I coped with my marriage, which wasn't working. How I coped with the fact that I was a pastor and I was terrified to admit that it wasn't working. When the marriage deteriorated, ended, I moved out, I moved to Lake Helen, and how I coped with work, the good and the bad, the success and the failure, how I coped with my anxiety that was connected to creating and making and innovating, and how I dealt with the crushing depression from not winning, from when people are not happy with me, and how I coped with the anger that came from that I didn't know what to do with. And how all along alcohol had fueled all of that codependence that kept me small and scared and afraid of being honest with myself about who I am and what I need. So I was homeless for a bit, and then I bought a house and moved back into town, all the while in a really cool journey of therapy and searching for good psychiatry, getting tested for some really frustrating ADHD symptoms that came up when I stopped drinking. My sort of organizational life was tanking and creating friction with a lot of relationships, including a lot in the church, and trying to sort out what's anxiety from what's depression, from what's anger. And I finally do have a great psychiatrist, and I'm working on getting properly medicated still. I know I've shared that in the past. But things have been a struggle. Things have been evolving as they do in mental health. I'm going to talk next week about Collective, but basically after an agonizing few years, right? We met in the restaurant for a little more than a year, and then we kind of met back here. So we finally got the CO after 2 years of working on this building, and we opened into COVID. We opened into this pandemic, and we lost staff. We'll talk about that more next week, but just catching us up on the story. So the beginning of the pandemic, I fell in love, and this was real pandemic romance. And I was in, and the kids were in, and we thought, I think, that we were kind of planning a future and building a life, and that ended about a month ago, and a day later, my older brother and his whole family were diagnosed with COVID. They had chosen not to be vaccinated, and right around then, I buried my good friend Craig, who died of COVID. And there was a day where I just realized that I had not been well in a really long time, and I just didn't want to fake it anymore, and I didn't have anything else to say, and I didn't have any more hope to offer. And I knew I still needed a paycheck, but that wasn't a good enough reason to keep faking it. So about 4 weeks ago, I just said no, and I stopped. And I sent an email to the people who are left as kind of leaders and said, hey, I don't know what this is or how long it is or what's going on, but I know that I need to take space if I'm going to be okay. And I thought I was done, and I told my boss at the Methodist Church that I was done, and I told him I was looking for jobs, and I looked for jobs. And this is, keep in mind, weeks after my ordination, which has taken 10 years to complete in the Methodist Church. And I was on my way out to the beach, and I was just catching up on these podcasts, and I listened to one by my guru, Rob Bell, and the name of the podcast was "Everyone is Looking for You," and it was this text that Dave just read, where Jesus is responding to this crushing demand for people to be healed, right? And whatever you think about miraculous healing, let's just say a healer is somebody who has given their life to getting energies realigned in a more helpful way. So Jesus is healing people, whatever that means, socially, physically, whatever. He's healing people, and we know that it's working because people are coming to him in mass, right? It's working. And it says that he goes away. There's all this demand, and he goes away, and Peter comes to him and he says, everybody's looking for you, and Jesus says, let's go to this other town. And part of Rob's summary of this story, he says, Jesus lets his great compassion for the world sit side by side with his clear sense of what he needs. And I just sat there and cried because I realized I've been doing this for 20 years and I'm almost 40 years old and I've never figured that out. How to let this calling, my great sense of compassion for the healing of the world, to sit side by side with a clear sense of what I need. I don't know how to do that. I'm not mature. I've never figured it out. And so I just overwork and burn out and eject and overwork and burn out and eject. And how many of you guys, when you find yourself being kind to yourself, you immediately feel guilty? I just don't want to be a part of a church like that anymore. I don't want to model that, and I don't want you guys to feel that anymore. I'm sick of it. I'm curious to know what it means to be people who can be honest about having a really strong sense of compassion to do something with our lives and to be honest about who we are and what we need. Dave, Michelle, what do you think? What are the questions this leaves you wondering?
You first.
Oh, good.
I was going to say you first.
No, I win.
What questions does this leave me
I don't know,
wondering?
just whatever. I didn't script it.
Honestly, as your friend for a very long time, I'm feeling like finally
Yeah.
you see what the people who love you around you see that you need, which
Yeah.
is you need healing just like everybody else does. And you're having to extend that to yourself because all of the crutches broke over the last couple of years.
Great metaphor. Yeah.
I just came up with it.
No,
just now.
I like that. Yeah.
It's kind of a thing of beauty.
Yeah.
And I am wondering in the sense of, I think whatever comes forward for you personally, for everybody in this room, for Collective, for this space, for our community, frankly, for this country,
As if on cue.
this is why I meditate. Because I grew up near Daytona and I fucking hate motorcycles. Okay. I'm glad that the people around you are the people around you because you do have an exceptional capacity to care and be compassionate and heal. And the thing I wonder is, what is this all going to look like moving forward? But I think part of the breaking down in the last couple of years has been what we've been talking about, like that's making good soil and we're tilling it, and it's been a friggin' painful process.
Yeah, we spent the first 5 years like like celebrating and lights and music and entertainment, like, we're gonna die before we die, it's gonna be the Jesus thing, it's gonna be awesome. And then it was like, here's the 5 years where you do that. We're like, oh God, that's so much. But yeah, I think it felt good to say it for a long time, and I think the last few years have been a lot of living in it.
Wonder of like what's going to come next, but for me personally, for whom the last 10 or so years has also kind of been a disaster.
Yeah.
For the first time ever, because the people I know and trust around me are also validating that we're having a society planet-wide breakdown, basically.
Yeah.
It's okay. We're all still here together. And I'm actually, for the first time, excited to see what's going to happen. For you,
Right.
especially because I think you'll be surprised by what comes out of you now that the facade has been broken. And which makes me excited for our community, because you'll be able to use all your creative powers in like an unfettered way. That's only going to make good ripples. I did not intend to say any of that, it just came out.
That's why I didn't script it or ask you anything in advance, because that's what I wanted.
But that's my genuine response
Thank
to
you.
hearing you put all of, sometimes you can't see the forest for the trees, right? When you're in it, we're all in it.
Yeah.
It's nice for you to,
Like, paint that arc. Yeah, well, that's what, and that's some of the sense I've gotten is like, some of what needs to happen is just to help people understand what's happened, because it's been such a combination of like, even before the pandemic, when we were in transition, things happened so fast that it was like there wasn't a way to communicate, and then we're under the pandemic, and so yeah, I think just stripping it back and getting some clarity. Thanks, Michelle. Dave.
Do you remember the first time we hung out outside of doing youth ministry?
Oh God, no, I don't. You probably pranked me, I would guess.
I have never actually pranked you.
Right.
No, I'm serious.
I know you make disciples. That's
I had your children.
you've most successfully in your life made disciples of people to prank me.
yes.
I've had your daughter prank you. That was fun.
Great.
We used to refer to it as Heritage Night.
Yeah, I remember.
So sitting on the floor in the fireplace room of my old house, drinking really cheap scotch.
Yeah.
Which I thought was good back then.
I mean, it was back then.
And I can remember this point where at that time, I was still single. Been involved, we were youth pastors across the street from each other. What's been 20 years probably?
Yeah.
And it's interesting. I think we were at that point probably some of our most authentic selves with each other.
Yeah.
And especially from what I'm hearing, I think I had the same sense in some of the youth work I was doing that I had my own fall from grace with that stuff. And you build something and you're really good at it, and it develops this like sense within you that you are built on the success of the thing you did.
Yeah.
And so if it doesn't continue to grow, what happens? And I remember talking to Mike Furlong when he brought out the, was it key to success is forward motion? Is that the right line?
Yeah.
And I remember telling him, like, I hate that.
Yeah.
Like, that's this sense of like, well, I built the biggest hotel, now I need to build the next biggest one or else I'm a failure.
Yeah, how much is enough more?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I think from the first days of even considering doing collective with the Methodist Church, and then the growth kind of perpetuated this, similar for me in youth ministry stuff, this little bit of like, you're so built up on this has to succeed or you're a failure, like it's a lot of internal pressure.
Yeah, well, and I mean, my sense is, I think the generous story would be to say that it creates. I think my experiences of it are more so that it reveals a lot of ego and hubris that hasn't been dealt with. Like, it's really good at finding that when you start to have some success, and it's, yeah.
Yeah, I think similar to people that enter the counseling field, they a lot of the time are the people that are trying to figure themselves out.
Yeah, of course.
And I think
Yeah.
people that become pastors are the ones that want to figure spirituality out. They're not the ones that already know.
Yeah, exactly.
'Cause, I mean,
Yeah, well,
I could sit here and ask you right now, who is Jesus, and it could be a very funny response. But I'm not going to let you. Well, you're fully ordained. You have your.
Yeah, I can give you the.
Yeah, they can't do anything to you. But yeah, I think I'm excited for you to set an example for the people around you, and especially your kids. Set an example of what healthy work-life balance looks like. I think in the last year, I have seen you healthier with your kids than ever in my life.
Thank you. It's been so easy.
You've never gotten angry with your kids.
No, I'm never wringing my hands about parenting.
But I think I'm excited for that example. I think, the example pastors have historically set is we work 24/7 and we're on call all the time, and we're just such, selfless people that we'll just,
Yeah.
And it's unhealthy, and it's the reason that pastors burn out and make terrible decisions. And
Yep. Well, that's such a good transition. Two of the things that I think have been most helpful for me in seeing this have actually been the police violence of last summer, and how often people said, we can't keep sending a single police officer into situations where they've got to be a medic and a social worker, and and I just started looking at what it was that I was doing, and I was like, there's no way that I can be good at any of these things, much less all of them, if I'm, and the other thing is the Christianity Today recently released a podcast called The Rise and Fall of Mars Hill, which is kind of an expose on this megachurch movement out in Seattle in the early 2000s, and the pastor Mark Driscoll, who was this incredibly theologically toxic, hyper-masculine, sort of really toxic leader, but he was a phenomenal communicator, and he built this whole thing. So it all blew up a few years ago, and they're finally kind of doing an autopsy of what happened in this movement, and I'm listening through it, and I'm like, obviously on a much smaller scale, but I'm hearing it, and I'm like, God, I've got some of that. There's definitely some of that going on. So, I think not necessarily from great examples, but I think there have been things where those have helped me to realize that I've hurt people. I've hurt a lot of people without meaning to, and I'm genuinely sorry, and I ask for forgiveness for the people that I've hurt, and I think some people I did on purpose, and I'm sorry for that too. I wish I was better than that, but I'm not. So I think there's, being humanized is incarnational, right? It's nice because you guys all go, oh, we understand. But it's also like, man, I fucked up, and I hurt people I loved, and that sucks. It sucks a lot. Who's the one person in the Gospels that doesn't have a Messiah complex? It's everyone else, right? It's so great. Jesus is the only one who doesn't have a Messiah complex. There's the story where Jesus is at the well in the middle of the day, and the Syrophoenician woman comes to him, and there's this throwaway detail. In the beginning of the story, it says, Jesus sent the disciples into town to get food. And it's you can't make too much of the details, but the details are there, right? Jesus sent the disciples into town to get food. Supposedly, they'd all walked the same amount of time, right? And Jesus doesn't have any trouble telling people who have walked just as far as him that he needs to rest. He knows what he is there to do, and he knows what it will take for him to do that well. He knows what he said yes to, so he doesn't struggle with saying no. He sends them to go get the food. Apparently, he doesn't have any trouble resting or getting away or asking for help or letting others do the heavy lifting. He doesn't have any Messiah complex. He doesn't have any trouble sitting down and letting others take care of things. And he has zero guilt, zero anguish. I mean, how often in the Gospels do we ever hear Jesus say, oh, I guess I should. I say that every day. I don't want to say that anymore. I guess I should do this. Oh, what are we here to do? What are we here to do? If we know that, then no is a complete sentence. Is it a part of what we're here to do? Should we do it? Then let's do it. This week, when you're kind to yourself and you feel guilty or lazy, hold that with me right now. That guilty, lazy, whatever that is. Take your hand. I'm not joking. Do it right now with your fist. When you're kind to yourself this week, and if that's the problem, then here's the first practice. You got to be kind to yourself. And when you are kind to yourself and your immediate instinct is to feel guilty or lazy, do this and look at your hand and let it go. All right? Look at your hand and let it go. When you this week, and again, if you haven't done it, then you need to do it. When you take the space you need and you immediately feel the impulse to minimize your needs, right? When you take 10 minutes and you shut the kids on the other side of the house and you just go lay down for 10 minutes and your head hits the pillow and you immediately go, oh, there's real suffering in the world. Stop it. Look at your hand and let it go. That's not helping anyone. When you take time for yourself and you immediately minimize it, force yourself. Look at your hand and let it go. How many of you, if you're really honest with yourself, in the last 18 months, your body, and I'm not talking about a voice or a spirit or whatever, your body has told you you need to check out? Jesus, you guys are good listeners. That's why I come to this church. How many of you did it? Yeah, that's why I also go to this church. Oh, let the record show no hands went up. Those of you who in the last few weeks have had that sense of like, how fast do we come back? At your pace. At your pace. And come back to what? There is no back. Stop that also. How fast do you come back? You come back at your pace. And that pace may be, I'm all the way back today, and tomorrow I need 3 naps. Okay, fine. You do it at your pace. The ones who the pandemic slowed things down, and now you're seeing the world start to spin back up, and you're seeing the calendar start to stag, and you know it's coming into fall, and you're like, I don't know. I kind of liked it slow. The urgency to put your foot back on the gas. When that comes up, close your fist, look at your hand, and don't just let it go, but I want you to do this one. Says who? Says who? Who's dictating the pace at which you give, and it is a gift. Who is dictating the pace at which you give your vital energies? Because you only have the ones you have. And if you're not in charge of who you're giving to and how you're giving and what you're giving, someone else is doing it. They're taking it from you. Says who? Says who you have to rush. Says who you have to do more than is sustainable. Says who you have to know the answer about tomorrow right now. Says who? This takes so much practice. But just for this week, and we'll agree to this and then maybe we'll come up with something easy next week. Just for this week, no apologizing, no rationalizing, no justifying, no explaining, no defending, no pre-clarifying, no disclaimers. Give yourself the gift of saying no to something this week. Just say no. And you'll know when. You'll know it's too much. And probably you'll know when the person starts talking to you before they've even asked. You'll be like, here it is. Here's my no. It's coming. You'll know. Several of, Dave and Michelle have said this in different ways. Part of the reason that I'm still here is because what I see in you guys is that you do this with others so naturally. and so generously, and especially these folks who are kind of have been my close support community in the last year. You guys do this, and you do this for everyone. And the ones you love the most, you do it like second nature. No one has to tell you, and you don't have to think about the burden. When other people need a minute, when people you love, like you can see it in their eyes, you can see it in their shoulders, you can see it in how they're walking and carrying themselves. When they're crispy and they need space, and they don't need you to talk to them, they need time, they need a break, they need a breath, they need a minute. I watch you guys, and you are great at this. You're compassionate. You see it in other people, like second nature, and you extend it, right? How often are you the person going, quit complaining, buck up, you can work harder? No, you know, especially now, especially after the last year and a half, if somebody's struggling, like if they're sucking wind, we're like, no, take a minute, take a beat. You're okay, take some time. We've developed all that musculature for other people, and we just don't have a damn clue how to use it to lift ourselves. But it's there. I promise you it's there. I've done it for the last 20 years with everyone but myself. And I promise you can. I'm going to obviously work on it, see if I can. A body's only as strong as the weakest part, right? And we talk about the metaphor of the one body and many parts, the body of Christ. What happens in a season when the pastor is the weakest link? The same thing. The body holds and heals itself. The body holds and heals itself. It's got the musculature. We've got a great skeleton. There's a lot of foundation. We've got a fantastic set of DNA. We've got a healthy immune system. The body holds and heals itself. Yeah.
Since you decided to pop a question on us without us knowing you were going to ask, this is where I'm going to ask you one.
Sure.
You've spent the sermon today, and I was waiting till Eucharist came up so that I would know what to say, so thank you for putting your notes on the back wall.
Sure. Yeah.
You spent a bunch of the sermon today talking about things that you were kind of ashamed about, and about your past and the way you've hurt people, the negative side, and who you don't want to be. Who are you and who do you want to be? You're welcome.
I'm Dave. I'm a therapist now.
I'm not willing to let you stop with just a negative description of yourself. So, hi,
yeah.
Bill. Thank you.
That's a good. What was the question? I was thinking up that comeback the whole time. What's
Be.
Who am I? Who I want to be? An astronaut, yeah. Already a dinosaur. I mean, I don't think it's a far cry from who I am. I don't know. That's a good question. I'm not just going to talk. I don't know. I think that's what I'm figuring out. I mean, yeah. I know that I have at my disposal a life perfectly shaped for the kind of thing I'm always supposed to have wanted. And this is just the part where I'm figuring out if this is it. But I mean, I would say I'm as animated by the work. I think both like selfishly, the creativity of it again, right now, just because the world is such a dumpster fire. I really truly like, and really, I mean, if I'm honest, this has come up pretty recently. The last couple months, kind of tail end of the pandemic. But I think part of what I've realized is that there's a segment of the population who is finally starting to ask again, and I feel like it's been cyclical. Like we came out of what I would call more of like a values-based or leadership-based society, and we've come through the information and technology era, and I think part of what the pandemic has done is I think that there's a small but growing segment of the population who are, after last year's election and after the pandemic and everything, finally genuinely asking again, who do we look to? And I think I'm like at the time where I'm like exhausted and burned out. I'm like, I don't know if I can do this anymore. It's the perfect time to be a moral voice for the common good. I think that there's more people than ever who are about to start really asking, like, who should we be looking to? Who should we be practicing with? How should we be living together? And the truth is, like, my calling is still to make a difference. I'm a public speaker, so I'm going to probably talk about that. And but I believe in this. I love it. I believe in what we're doing. I think, we've restarted or started over 5 or 10 times in the last 10 years. So it's time for the next evolution, I think. I didn't really plan on how this was going to end. So are there any questions from you guys actually before we please? That's so collective.
Let me turn it on and see if it works. I just turned it on now.
Yes.
Is that working?
All right.
So Ben, what do you say? Yeah, right. So first of all, what I'd like to say, and I don't like to speak on behalf of everybody else, but I'm going to. I think
You're British, it's fine.
it's humbling, the bravery and the courage and the integrity in what you just said. Let that sink in. It's humbling for the bravery and the integrity and the courage for what you were just able to share, first of all. Now, if I heard you right, I would say the last few weeks you've been discovering a lot of things about yourself and about your life. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Weeks and years, yes.
Yeah. You know what? A lot of those things that you've been discovering, us that regard ourselves as your friends, we already knew.
Go figure.
And you know what? We still came. We're still here, despite all of those things. And we'll still keep coming. And that's what makes collective, I think.
Yeah, thank you.
I just wanted to say that.
Thank you. Well, so this is, it's all. Well, I'm not going to get into that because I think Kenny's going to say it best with the benediction. This is the good news that the things that kill us, the things that grant us the agonizing but supreme blessing of an opportunity to die before we die. Those are the path to life. Helena.
Before we continue, I'd like to ask you all that my grandmother is still in the hospital.
Yeah.
She's positive for COVID again.
Oh my gosh.
I don't think she's contagious, and she seems to be doing fine.
Yeah.
But I just like to keep her in your prayers.
Absolutely. We will. Thanks for asking. Before we come to the table, is there anybody else that would like us to carry joy or sorrow with them, to hold them in the light this week? Too bad, we're gonna anyway. Mary. Oh man. Baby's crawling. We have an industrial Roomba, so we can put her on that, skate her around on a saddle. Anybody else? I'm grateful for you guys. Mary, yeah. As always, oh, Joy, please. Sorry, Brandon. I feel it. I love you too. Listen, I'm sorry I planned a sermon before your sermon. I think that was rude of me. Thank you for giving a much better sermon. Thank you, Joy. No, truly, thank you. I think that I do think you speak for a lot of people, and I think one of the hardest things to explain, and this, I mean, you guys will understand this because it's true with my kids. Like, you can't, the people who are the closest to you, it's not that I'm lacking your giving me the affirmation I need. In the same way that it's not that the kids don't tell me they love me enough. It's not you guys, that's in here. It's this stuff. And I think for a long, long time, I probably, even though I didn't believe it intellectually, I believed somewhere deep down that it would be enough, that if I could get enough of doing it right, pleasing people, making it work. And this, like you said, Joy, maybe in the pandemic we come to the end of that lie, you know? So we're going to come to this table, as we do every week, and receive this symbol that is for us in our tradition the materiality of our faith and the humanity of God. A reminder that we ourselves, even me, we are the body of Christ. We as Christ's body to be given. We as Christ's blood to be shed. The table of this unconditional belonging and transformative love is set. As the body of Christ has spoken its prayers, may it hear also with loving ears. The table of this love is open to us and to all people, and no one will ever be turned away. When you're ready, come. Let's share this with one another, this meal and these words, bread for the journey, nourishment for the soul. Come when you're ready.
The hours that I've known, and in all of my woes, the cause to lay me low, a demand they turn to hope. Just set me free. Would you just set me free? And it takes its hold, and it won't let you go. I'm reminded of the cold, how it's taken so much of me. Are you worthy of being saved? All your fears and insecurity, would you just set me free? You just set me free. You just set me free. There's nowhere to hide. We're only just trying. Only just lies you hear. While redemption seems so far away, I'm stumbling through it every day. Just set me free. Would you just set me free? Just set me free. just set me free.
Thanks so much for joining us in person and online. Want to shout out to the folks who are online, so Jim and Peggy and Wendy and Melanie and Heather, who was in the room and online. Thank you so much for being a part of our community. Thank you again for making financial support a part of your practice at collectivegives.com. And make sure you make your plan to stay connected by visiting wearecollectivechurch.com. You can update your preferences to customize your engagement. For benediction this evening, we have the poem, Please Call Me by My True Names by Thich Nhat Hanh. Don't say that I will depart tomorrow. Even today, I am still arriving. Look deeply. Every second I am arriving to be a bud on a spring branch, to be a tiny bird with still fragile wings, learning to sing in my new nest, to be a caterpillar in the heart of a flower, to be a jewel hiding itself in a stone. I still arrive in order to laugh and to cry, to fear and to hope. The rhythm of my heart is the birth and death of all that is alive. I am the mayfly metamorphosing on the surface of the river, and I am the bird that swoops down to swallow the mayfly. I am the frog swimming happily in the clear water of a pond, and I am the grass snake that silently feeds itself on the frog. I am the child in Uganda, all skin and bones, my legs as thin as bamboo sticks, and I am the arms merchant, selling deadly weapons in Uganda. I am the 12-year-old girl, refugee on a small boat, who throws herself into the ocean after being raped by a sea pirate. And I am the pirate, my heart not yet capable of seeing and loving. I am a member of the Politburo with plenty of power in my hands, and I am the man who has to pay his debt of blood to my people dying slowly in a forced labor camp. My joy is like the spring, so warm it makes flowers bloom all over the earth. My pain is like a river of tears, so vast it fills the 4 oceans. Please call me by my true names, so I can hear all my cries and my laughter at once, so I can see that my joy and pain are one. Please call me by my true names, so I can wake up, and so the door of my heart can be left open, the door of compassion.